Welcome to the Tough Crowd Podcast, the Daily Vibe. I am JFi, and today we are talking about the return to Florida. The pack up in Connecticut and the move back to Florida was a challenge. As they say, reentry is a bastard. I'm going to make that the new term versus reentry is a bitch. That doesn't really seem fair. Now, I am going to miss a lot of things about Connecticut. I'm excited to be back in Florida, back in a routine, but I really did enjoy my time there. I'm especially going to miss the people in the townhome community where my husband has a place. He goes back and forth. And I started calling it a complex, and I was told I was not allowed to call it a complex. And my friend Marie, that I ran into, who happens to be a real estate agent, said I would call it a townhome community. So that's what we call it now. And I met so many nice people there, great dogs. Big shout out to Christopher and Jason, who are the pillars of the community up there, got a lot of groups together, organized different events. I really enjoyed meeting them, and they have added a lot to the community, getting people out and involved with one another. So I will miss that aspect of it. And of course, poor Jason. I'm sorry, Jason. I called you Jonathan for 3 months. Everywhere I went, hi, Jonathan. Have you met Jonathan? This is Jonathan. Maisie, meet Jonathan. And then we figured out finally when Christopher said, oh, Jason's coming. I said, oh my God, I've been calling him Jonathan since May. Any event, I figured that out. The one person that will not miss me up there is my husband's cleaning person. I will call her Katrina. That's not her name, but I will call her Katrina. Katrina has been doing cleaning for my husband in different spots up there for 9 years, I think, in a condo, then another apartment, then this townhouse. And she comes every 2 weeks, and he doesn't really have a lot going on there. He's not home. The dogs aren't usually there. So it's a simple project. And I don't think she liked us there because when we came, first of all, the dogs create more mess. So we had her come every week. And then I noticed different things that she wasn't doing. She does things a certain way. I don't know, she wasn't cleaning the picture frames. So they had an inch of dust on them. She wasn't vacuuming under the console tables. So there were tumbleweeds of dust, different things. So I started leaving her a list. And instead of checking off the list before she left, it was crumpled up and ripped up and put in the garbage. And I wasn't sure if she did what I asked or not. And then the last time she was there, I said, I'm going to be leaving. And she smiled widely. And I said, so I just want to make sure when my husband's not going to be here when you come, but make sure you clean all the picture frames. And I went over all things, and she had a very distressed look on her face. And she said to me, I clean, clean, clean. I clean, clean, clean every time. And that's what I'll do. And I said, okay. And then I said, this is the last time I'm going to see you because I'm leaving for the season. And she got a little pep in her step and hopped out the door. So, Katrina, I'm sorry, you won't miss me. I was able to fit in a headshot for my law firm. I know everybody in my family is greatly relieved that that's over with because for the 2 weeks before that, that's all I could talk about. I can't do anything on Saturday night because I have my headshot on Sunday. And it had gotten delayed a couple of times because the photographer had a family emergency, was out of town. So, in any event, it had to be scheduled on a Sunday. So it was lots of preparation in my mind, even though it was needless because I followed the instructions to a T, which you had to bring makeup for touch up, hairspray, a lint brush, hair gel, powder, lip balm, all these things that you might need. And it was very easy, actually, once I got there. I didn't end up changing into any other outfits. He was great. He made it very easy. But there is a lot that goes into these headshots, I realized. So I know everybody thinks that whoever would be a model would have a very easy life. I don't know if they do, because it's somewhat taxing to sit there and have to pose in a certain position for, this was only under an hour, but chin down, cock your head to the left, put your weight in your left hip, stand this way, pull your arms back. Oh, open your eyes. There were so many instructions, but he made it easy. I got into the minutia when we started looking at them. Do I want my hair behind my ear? Do I not want my hair behind my ear? And what's the proper expression? Do you smile too much and then the rest of your face looks odd? In any event, he helped me a lot. And we got one that I think is going to be good. They do some retouching. And I think he felt bad. He said, I'm going to retouch. You just have a little bit of redness. And I'm quite aware that my skin tends to be red at times. So I was not insulted, but he was afraid to say that to me. I said, touch away, my friend, touch away. I can't wait for the final product, and I am able to get a copy to use on LinkedIn. Very exciting for any of my LinkedIn friends, even though I'm not on there much, but that will be an update for me, a new photo. Packing to get back here was also a challenge. We had brought stuff up to Connecticut in suitcases. We sent a car up that had a bunch of things in it, a whole trunk full of odds and ends, workout clothes, I don't know, all kinds of things, sneakers. And then coming back, we didn't have a car sending back, or we didn't have a car coming back. So we have suitcases. So I flew on the dog jet again with Leo, and he got 2 bags and I got 2 bags. So we had 2 large suitcases, 2 large duffels that I got a weight measurement device from Amazon and kept weighing. So they were like 49.8 pounds. They had to be 50 pounds and under. Even though when I arrived there, they couldn't have cared less, tagged the bags, took them away. So I assume that if they had been a lot over the 50 pounds, they would have snagged me. But they took all the suitcases, or the 2 suitcases and the 2 huge duffels, which were basically like trying to drag a dead body across the parking lot or in the terminal. But they were very helpful. So we had all that. I still have 2 piles of stuff, some of which is Maisie's, most of which is mine, because over the summer, anybody that came down to Florida, I'd ask them to bring something else because I didn't bring the right stuff. I brought way too much of the wrong stuff. I don't know what I thought I was going to be doing up there. So I'm going to be sending 2 suitcases back with H when he goes back. And when he comes back down, he's going to pack the remaining stuff in there, which Natalie said, good luck to you if Dad's packing all of those clothes into 2 suitcases. But I have my faith that he can do it. I have them all folded perfectly. And the scary part is I still had to stuff everything else into these other bags with those 2 remaining suitcases. And I also mailed a box of stuff because I knew I was over the 2 suitcases that were remaining. So the scary part is I still had clothes here. And in all honesty, I don't feel like I have that many clothes compared to a lot of people I know who are fashionistas. I do like clothes, I buy clothes, but I also get rid of stuff quickly. So I don't know, or I get rid of stuff frequently. So I'm not sure what happened with the summer, but I know next summer I will bring 1/4 of what I brought up there. My last consideration before getting on the flight was maybe a way to get more clothes down is I could take a page from Joey's book from Friends when he was arguing with Chandler over clothes or something, and he came in wearing all of Chandler's clothes. I was considering putting on multiple layers, although I was concerned about the heat effect of that, because with all of that, I'm still not as big as a big guy flying. So I felt like that was fair, but H said no, I couldn't do that, that was weird. Did consider it. Back to reentry here in Florida. It is a lot to come back when you haven't been here in 3 months and seeing everything that's gone on or not gone on here. So putting everything away in my closet, one thing begets another. And I have all my shoes to put away. So I think, why don't I clean off the shelves before I put them in? But I have to clean everything that's left there off the shelf. I get the duster out, I get cleaner out, and Maisie is just shaking her head at me as I'm toiling into the night cleaning the shelves in my closet. And then certain things I think, oh, I'm going to put this in my storage bin. And then I take the storage bin out and there's things in there I forgot I had. Should I try them on? Do I need to keep them? And then now I have a whole pile of things I have to try on, take a picture of, decide if I want to keep them or not keep them, whether they're my style, not my style. I don't know. That's my biggest struggle, is what is my style? I like a lot of things, but then I don't know, is it minimalist? Do I like fun florals, which are very popular here in Florida? Or should I be wearing sophisticated, muted colors, all one tone that's more age appropriate? I don't know. So I'm going to consult with my friend Gloria, who's my fashion consultant up north, and we're going to do some pictures and FaceTime, and she's very decisive and helpful. So I'm going to go through all of my closet. Maisie was also going through her closet, cleaning stuff out. She has some excess. So we're going to take over part of the guest room closet, or Bobby's room as it's known. It's a big closet. So we're going to rearrange some of the hanging space in there. So we're slowly moving into their B5. So be aware. So speaking of reentry, Jenny Clean returns. So my family calls me Jenny Clean because when somebody does a project or cleans something, I'll come in to inspect it after and I'll say, is it Jenny Clean, or are you just finished to what you think is the standard? So Jenny Clean is always the standard everybody uses, or I would like them to use. And I'd have to say that I had my cleaning people come in every other week when I wasn't here. They did an amazing job. Everything was in perfect order. What was not in perfect order was the landscaping. And I love Marco, who's been my landscaper for several years. He is a wonderful guy, very easy to get along with, hard worker, has great guys working for him. But I don't know what they were doing when I was gone, because there were so many overgrown things. Palm trees were overgrown. There was grass growing up under the fence. They left the fence open. My neighbor came over and said that fence gate has been open basically all the time you were gone. So I think every time they came here, they forgot to close it, which isn't a huge deal, except I don't want any additional bunnies or wildlife in my fenced in area. So I went on a tear with that and went around, took photos, and Marco met me on Wednesday and slowly came up the driveway. And I get along great with him, but I think he was dreading seeing me. And I think the guys that work for him were thinking, oh, great, she's back, the crazy lady. Because I always come out and have a question about something or have a new project. So we are working on the grass under the fence, very exciting, but to get the grass out from the fence, he chopped a lot of the dirt out, and now there's a gap. Do we put stones in there? Will the HOA allow the stones? So many questions. So Marco has some projects, and we are all friends again. I also had a mountain of mail to go through. It's a long story, but I went to forward my mail when I left. And because there's so much mail fraud, I didn't file the appropriate paperwork. You have to go down with 2 different forms of ID to the post office, and I never got around to it. So I just would hold it for a month until I knew somebody was going to be back here. And then my neighbor was just collecting it and sending me photos of anything, which 99% of it is junk. But she had probably 4 large shopping bags full of mail that she did not think was important, which I agree. And I still went through it, and it was all junk. So I threw all of that out. That was another project. I had the window washers here today to get the windows cleaned up from all of the summer rains, which it's still rainy here, but that project is done. So I feel like I can rest a little bit more easily now that some of my projects are done. My clothes are put away for now. I still have my project of try-ons, but I have calmed down a little bit. I don't do well on the segue back because I want everything perfect as soon as I arrive, and that's impossible. Speaking of Jenny Clean, though, I don't know if any of you have seen Britney Spears' latest post. I was a big Free Britney fan when her dad was the conservator of her estate because she had been deemed mentally incompetent. And there were all these claims that he wasn't letting her do things, he wasn't letting her buy things, he was spending her money. And everybody remembers the big case where he got removed as conservator and she was awarded the freedom to spend her own money again. Well, I do have to retract my prior position and think that maybe that was a mistake. She's been seen on Instagram posting from her house, doing these weird dances in her underwear with a really disgusting house in the back with dog poop on the floor. And having a dachshund, dog poop does happen on the floor. I get it. But obviously, she must have a staff. I don't know if she has a staff. I don't know what's going on there. But I do retract my previous position because maybe she does need a conservator. I don't know. It's very sad being a child star and having all the pressure that was on her. And obviously, everybody knows the different breakdowns she's had. It's just very sad. And it sounds like she's estranged from her children. So we will see what happens, but I hope she gets some help, the help she needs. Our third vibe for the day is true crime. Back to true crime. Donna Adelson was convicted. She was the grandmother on trial in Florida for contracting or participating in the contract killing of her ex-son-in-law, who was married to her daughter. Bitter divorce. He didn't want the daughter to relocate down to where Donna Adelson lived in Miami. The theory was that she got the son to contract with somebody to kill him. He was killed. She's been convicted. She had a meltdown when she was convicted. The judge was admonishing her. I don't really get why the judge was yelling at her. I don't know what somebody's supposed to do when they say that you're basically sentenced to life in prison. In Florida, there is no chance of parole if you're sentenced to life. There's no parole. Other states you can be sentenced to life and still be up for parole. That's not the case in Florida. So she does have appeals. One of the appeal avenues that people have mentioned is that she couldn't make up her mind if she would testify. She did not testify on her own behalf and was waffling on it until the last minute. And the judge gave her a very short time at the end to make the decision. Some lawyers have said that might be an appeal or a reason for appeal because you can't be forced to testify and she was feeling forced to make a decision too quickly. So that has to be seen if that's an avenue for appeal and whether her daughter Wendy, who was married to Dan Markel, the victim, whether she will be charged because there was lots of different evidence that came out. One of the questions that kept coming up, or part of the analysis of this, was that there were hours and hours of the son, Charlie, who contracted for the killing, who's in jail right now for life. Prior to his conviction, he was on tape talking to his mother in recorded calls. And so they had a wiretap on their phones and they would talk multiple times a day and he would go on and on and on and she would listen to him. So many of the commentators had said, well, it's a very odd family dynamic to be talking that many times a day. You know, they would say, personally, I talk to my mother once every 2 weeks, once a month. I think that's normal. I'm sort of shocked at that because in our family, we have a family text chat, which includes Justin and Bobby and all 5 of us. And then the girls FaceTime each other at least once a day. I talk to probably every one of the girls every day. I talk to Bobby and Justin. I text with them all the time. Bobby will call me occasionally as well. I'll call him. So I don't think it's that weird that they spoke all the time. I think it was the codependent relationship that everybody wanted to make Donna happy. So Charlie decided to do this to make Donna happy because whatever looked good for her and whatever she wanted was good for the family. So he was willing to do whatever to make her happy. I think the other question about all the true crime focus is, why do people watch this? What is interesting to people about this? And I've been looking into some theories. One of the theories is, at least my family isn't hiring contract killers. They might have some issues, but people can watch it and have some solace in thinking, at least they're not hiring a hitman to kill me or somebody else. They feel better in comparison. The other thought is that maybe they have some of the same issues this family has, either with the mother, father, brother, whatever it might be, and that this is a way of working it out in their own head by watching these people struggle, obviously with an extreme situation. And it allows them to think about their own relationships and maybe work on them in a different way. I don't know if that's true, but those are some of the theories of why people watch true crime. They watch these trials, and especially where there's a huge family dynamic going on. You really couldn't even write this stuff the way these characters have developed and were shown. And this has been going on for, the murder was over 10 years ago. So the interest continues. The jurors are speaking out. The jury foreperson is a young woman. She looked like 24, 25, I think. And she was on TikTok during the trial, I guess, doing regular social media, but nothing to do with the trial. After the trial was over, they can do whatever they want. And she was posting videos about her experience with the trial, being the jury foreperson. She wanted to be the jury foreperson, how she went about it, how they came to their decision. So look that up if you're interested. It's quite interesting. She was catching a lot of grief online for posting by people saying, you look too young. They were making fun of the way she looked, the way she spoke, how she did things. How dare she speak out now? Obviously, she was looking at social media during the trial. And there was no prohibition on social media, just something about this trial. My question would be, how do you look at TikTok or other social media and not see something about this trial by accident? I don't know. I don't really use TikTok, so I don't understand. Maybe you can avoid it, but I think that's an odd situation if she's saying she was on it and avoided it. If she was just posting versus scrolling. So some people are saying that could be a possible appeal for Donna Adelson if somebody was looking at other media. I think her appeal chances are low. The only one, again, is if it looks like the judge pressured her into making the decision about testifying or not testifying under extreme circumstances. So that will be seen, or we will see what happens with that, whether Wendy's arrested. And there's another juror speaking out, so I'm sure we'll hear from some other ones, but they are a younger jury, and people had been in the court and they weren't allowed to show them on camera, but different reporters had been in the court and reporting on what was happening and what the jurors looked like. So our fourth vibe of the day is the Netflix series called Unknown Number: High School Catfish. If you haven't watched this, I think it's really interesting and shocking how it takes some turns. I think it's an hour and a half. It's just one episode. And I think when you first start watching it, you would never guess what happens at the end. And even when that ending starts happening, you think, oh, this can't possibly be what it is. and there's going to be some new information and it's going to change the ending. It does not. So it's a must see. And I think it is very interesting in terms of how schools deal with technology and social media. So the story is set in Michigan, and this girl starts receiving these cruel text messages about her, and her boyfriend receives them as well. But basically, it's somebody saying to her, I'm going to take your boyfriend. Your boyfriend doesn't like you. You're ugly. And then gets into very like explicit, really disgusting texts over time. And it starts in October of 2020, which I think is not a coincidence that it was during the pandemic when this started, when people are inside and have mental issues brewing and nowhere to go but online. And it's even weirder when you find out really what happened. They were tortured for, I think it was a year and a half, like over a year. Yeah. So, like a year. They started in 2020, then nothing for a while, then started again in September of 2021. And then it came to a head in end of 2022. So this went on. The school tried to help. And a lot of the people speaking in the documentary were faulting the school for dealing with it. But I think they actually handled it well. I don't know what else they were supposed to do. They were monitoring students at the time the texts were received to see if anybody was seen texting. And they did a lot. But the one thing I did have an issue with was the principal said, I don't know what I was supposed to do. Everybody has phones now. So I would be a fan if I were a current parent with kids in high school, junior high, elementary, to have a no phone policy during the day. I don't know why anybody would want to run a school where the kids have their phones all day. Maybe there's some other aspect I'm missing, but if I were he, that's what I would have done. Not necessarily because of this instance, but in general, because it would reduce the number of problems you might have during the day. So that brings you back to high school and all the things that are happening in high school, who's on the team, who didn't get on the basketball team or the baseball team, who's related to who. It's crazy how it puts a pit in your stomach thinking about that and thinking about how this girl must have felt through this. And then when you see the ending, mind blowing. So that leads us into our last vibe of the day, which is so speaking of a pit in your stomach, let's all talk about the presidential fitness test or the presidential physical fitness test. I have horrible memories of that. I thought it was also elementary school, but apparently it looks like it was only middle school and high school. The different elements of the fitness test were through 2012 were a mile-long run, a shuttle run, which is running from like a little cone to another little cone as fast as you can to see, I guess, agility. 60 seconds of sit-ups, pull-ups to exhaustion, and the sit and reach flexibility assessment. I read a little bit about the history of it and why we had it. There were two climbers, that one of whom was a surgeon back in the 50s. They were realizing what skills it needed to climb a mountain. And for some reason, they thought that should translate for everybody. They started doing tests on kids. They did it in the United States, and they came up with a test that was quite different from the fitness test that everybody knows and loves or hates. They did it in the US, Switzerland, Italy, and Austria, and 58% of the US kids failed it. Now, this was much more of a traditional fitness regimen versus what the fitness test came to be. Their focus was on arm strength, core, and flexibility. So then when the test was instituted by Dwight Eisenhower, because he had seen their findings, it became much more of like a military training type test, which it stayed. So in the version developed in 1957, they had pull-ups, sit-ups, standing broad jump. That would not have been good for me. Shuttle run, the 50-yard dash, and a softball throw. Oh, and a 600-yard run. And the softball throw would have been a throw to my feet. So I don't know how that would have gone. It had some tweaks throughout the years from 1957 through 2012, when I think it was totally revamped or removed. Now, for a previous scrawny, skinny like me back then with not any athletic ability, I think I actually have some inherent athletic ability. It was just never developed. And I've focused on exercise throughout my life, so I have gotten better at that, but I'm not a naturally athletic person. Eye-hand coordination, upper body strength for sure. So back then, it was traumatizing for me to have to go through that. In addition, I was bullied, made fun of for being underweight, skinny. And this is a shout out to the jerk named Casey on the bus who used to call me Scarecrow and terrorize me every day in 9th grade. I hope karma's been kind to you, Casey, because you were horrendous and ruined my entire freshman year of high school. So that's just a note as to why I had issues with this test. It's apparently coming back, and my whole concern would be, is it actually being reintroduced with the goal of improving physical fitness, or is it just a way to force kids to realize that they aren't physically fit? Back when we did it, you had to do the mile run was a group thing, but obviously anybody who finished earlier could see who was not finished, and it was generally me last, with the gym teacher yelling, Ventress, Ventress, you got it. You're bringing up the rear. Come on. Which is just, think about that, being yelled at in front of your entire class as you struggle to come across the finish line. And pull-ups and then sit-ups, which weren't the worst. The sit and reach were not awful because I was very flexible. But the shuttle run, I have zero agility, so I'm sure I fell down at some point. So I think it's a matter of, how are they doing this? Is it actually going to help kids if it's not giving them the life skills to be physically fit? Versus this scared straight method of making kids think, oh, I'm in horrible shape, I'm going to go out and get on an exercise plan. The physical fitness plan at every school should be based on life skills that they can use on an everyday basis versus these military exercises. So I hope they're going to be developing skills with this test that allow people to use them in their lives versus a one-off, like all the different sports that we were made to play in gym. Thinking back to the 70s and 80s, floor hockey. What were some of the other sports? Floor hockey and square dancing were some of the highlights. If you can believe it, we actually used to square dance, and everybody saw nothing wrong with it. Which, nothing against square dancing. I guess it could be fun, but it's a very interesting choice for a physical fitness activity. So that's my take on the presidential fitness test. I am only a fan if it's going to give people skills. If not, I think there's better ways to do it, and the trauma continues. That's just my opinion. A focus on lifelong fitness versus intermediate trauma and embarrassment. That's it for today. We'll see you soon.